The crowded 2020 Democratic field is leading some voters to read between the lines. So an official from Iowa's Democratic Party is trying to remedy that. The members of the 2020 book club are setting out to read one piece of work from each of the candidates. Afterward, the authors themselves are invited to the Hawkeye State for a discussion. Here's footage from the live stream of their meeting this week with former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro. The club welcomed Senator Cory Booker to their inaugural meeting in March. And next up is Mayor Pete Buttigieg. The goal is to speak with each candidate before Iowa's nominating contest. It's the nation's first caucus each election. This time, it falls on February 3rd of next year. Andrea Phillips is the founder of the 2020 Book Club and the vice chair of the Iowa Democratic Party. She joins me now from Des Moines, Iowa. Andrea, thanks so much for joining us. How did the idea for this book club begin?
Well, it was really simple. I was sitting around one day in February reading Pete Buttigieg's book, which has just come out. And I was sitting next to the fire with the dog, and I wanted to tweet a picture of it. And I thought, as the vice chair of the party, I need to remain neutral, and I didn't want somebody to think I was favoring one or the other. And I thought, well, I'm going to read all the books anyway. Why don't I just put it out on Facebook and see if I can find a dozen or so people to join me, and we'll call it a book club. And that way I can tweet about each book as I read it, and I won't have to feel worried about it.
Well, so far you have spoken with Senator Cory Booker and, as we mentioned, former Secretary Castro. What stood out to you about those conversations?
It's great to have a book club conversation because in a book, the candidate has enough time to decide what they want to focus on about themselves and what sort of image they want to project. And so the conversations are a little bit more intimate. They're a little bit more about the candidate as a person, their background, and the influences that influence their policy decisions today and in the future.
Well, this group is becoming a community forum where people can ask questions and discuss their opinions with the candidates themselves as well as each other. Why do you think it's important for these kinds of conversations to be happening in today's political climate?
Well, especially in Iowa, we take our role as the first caucus state very seriously. And I think it's important to have conversations about each of the candidates. And in fact, several members of the book club have said that they appreciate the opportunity to have a little bit more structure to sort of force them to go through all the books because they feel obligated as an Iowan to research the candidates a little bit more thoroughly, maybe.
Well, the Des Moines Register recorded hundreds of voter questions to candidates in the month of April. They published the results today, finding that voters asked the most about health care, followed by climate change and education. You're the first vice chair of Iowa's Democratic Party. Are you seeing those issues being brought up a lot on the ground?
Yes. I mean, I would say healthcare and education are the two issues that I hear about the most.
And what issues do you think are not being discussed enough? What issues could make or break a candidate with Iowa voters?
Well, in answer to your first question, what issues do I not hear being discussed? I've never heard a voter talk to me or others about the Russia investigation or the Mueller report. I mean, I hear that at home as we're watching the nightly news together, but I don't hear it when I'm out talking to voters. So I think candidates who focus on the economy, healthcare, and making a difference in people's lives are going to have the most traction.
Well, there are over 700 members of your Facebook group. How many people showed up this past session, and what kind of feedback did you receive?
We had about 50 people at the live meeting in Des Moines. The members are spread all across the state and, in fact, in 39 other states. And people really appreciated the chance to get to speak to the candidate on a little bit more intimate level than something that is sort of their stump speech divided into sections.
And what's been the most surprising thing so far, Andrea? I know you've done a couple of these now. Is there anything in particular maybe that has happened that you maybe weren't expecting to happen?
Well, I think the honesty of the candidates has been refreshing, that they're willing to open up and talk a little bit more about their lives and maybe how the impact of their lives and the way they grew up or the decisions they made as they were getting older impact their policy decisions. And that, to me, has been fascinating.
All right. A really intriguing idea. Andrea Phillips. Andrea, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. You're welcome.